We're live at Expert35. I'm your host, Gabriel Garcia, and as promised, we're going to have experts from 35 different industries talking about the challenges, talking about the hardship, and the opportunity. And this week is going to be tough. I mean, last week we had two hurricanes blast through Louisiana, part of Texas. So we're going to talk about appraisals. We're going to talk about how to get you back on your feet, make sure that the insurance has the right numbers, and brought back one of my OG experts, Barbara. Thank you so much for being back on the show as an art appraiser.
Gabriel, thank you for having me. I'm delighted to be here.
No, last time we had you on the show, it was so eye-opening, just like understanding that, like, oh man, like you need the deductions. Like if you're trying to donate, you want maximum value. If we want insurance, you want the right value. And if you want to like pass it on to your family, you also don't want to make sure you get taxed on it. So it's such an interesting market of like different times in our lives when we need things appraised. But this is really tough. I mean, I know during Harvey, tell us a little bit of what happened to you during Harvey and like what you got into.
Well, during Harvey, I received a lot of phone calls about, and I saw a lot of pictures where furniture is just floating in the house. I mean, it was devastating. It was devastating for so many Houstonians and so many people outside of Houston, Rockport and so forth, and had calls from a lot of people where they were just devastated. And was able to do paintings from information that was provided. Usually I would be able to get a photograph of an artwork or an item before it was damaged in Harvey and then afterwards. And I'd write a damage claim appraisal for an equitable settlement with their insurance company. And so for today, all of that information's gone well. But whenever I submit a report, if the insurer ever needs additional information or the insurance company needs additional information, I'm available.
No, and I mean, I'm sure so many people are wondering, like, hey, Laura just went through, there's property damage in terms of like the house, the roof. So we had Brian earlier talking about how to inspect your house. But man, water is just such a damaging piece of, people don't think about it sometimes, but it really can take a number on artwork. And that's one of the things you really look at, furniture.
I absolutely do. And, talking about water damage, we're talking about the hurricanes, but sometimes that damage just comes from the water heater upstairs. And a lot of our older homes, that's where the water heater is. And if it breaks or explodes, that water will come down the walls, and any artwork installed in that wall will cause damage. And although it might not appear to be visible immediately, there are long-term effects to moisture damage. It will slowly rot out the canvas. For example, on a canvas or maybe a Japanese screen that's on the wall, it will slowly rot out. So it's important to take that piece to a conservationist to have that all stopped and refurbished.
Well, that's a great question that Greg kind of ties into that is like, does damage always result in diminished value? What is restoration, or do you have to even file restoration? Like, do you record that if something happened in your
Absolutely
RP?
Record it. It's important to have it going forward, and you might as well be honest about it, because if you are looking at something valuable, and if it's going to go to another seller and they're looking at it underneath a UV light, or if they're going to do any testing, you're going to be able to tell if it was
They'll
restored.
see that.
You might as well just be upfront. I guess you can think about cars when they go through flood damage. That's all. So it does diminish the value. It's really a matter of how much it diminishes the value. And quite frankly, a beautiful composition by a well-known artist is always going to sell. And if you just love it and the two people love it, it could bid to crazy numbers still.
Well, I mean, let's talk about Laura and let's talk about Louisiana. Again, our prayers go out to them. We know that it's never easy to go through this stuff. We've got, if you text Laura to the number on the screen, Barbara will actually help you file a claim and get the proper appraisal, because sometimes, like you said, furniture, artwork, collectibles, firearms, right? I mean, there's all kinds of little pieces in there.
Absolutely. And if you text Laura, I'm going to give you a call back. If I'm not the right person for the appraisal, then I'm going to be able to make a referral for you. For example, I've appraised firearms. I work with them, but you may be at a level where you need a specialist. I will be able to make that referral for you and would be happy to.
And let's talk about that, right? If you're looking for an appraiser, now you can do it remote. That's like the first thing you should do. Like, hey,
absolutely,
your camera, take photos, right? You can do a Zoom call.
I do a lot of desktop appraisals where that might be a virtual inspection, FaceTime. In fact, I FaceTimed with somebody in San Antonio and was able to talk to him about the artwork. And it was so great because I could talk about the signature, and he could show that to me, and we could talk about different periods of signatures for the artist and the different glaze types and why one piece might be more valuable than another. And it was a really great meeting. And I'm in the process of making a referral for him for somebody that can do a better, well, he wants to sell the items, and that's not exactly what I do. So I'm going to make an introduction for somebody that is the right fit for this collection to downsize, or rather deaccession.
Yeah, because he already knows
previously
people.
interviewed somebody else, and he said they were so overwhelmed, and I'm like, that's because it's not the right seller. And to maximize the value, let me make some recommendations.
Perfect. So it's important, right? We had like a little quick short list. If you're looking for someone, you want them to be certified. What else do you want them to have in terms of
be certified? You want to ask a lot of questions. It's really important that you are comfortable with your appraiser, and ask them if they've appraised similar type of items. If they haven't, ask them why they think they can do a good job for you, and they should be able to explain that. It's okay if they have to network with other appraisers. I do that all of the time. And you just want to be upfront with that information with your client or your prospective client. And make sure they want to work within your budget. And I also believe in getting a project estimate and then a cap on that project estimate, because you don't want to be blindsided with a crazy expense for your appraisal project. Right.
And make sure they're a member of an association, and obviously their experience. Like Jennifer has got a question, is like, oh no, Greg, do appraisers have different specialties, right?
Absolutely. So my specialty is based on the items that I see frequently. So there's some items I see occasionally, but and my specialty would fall into furniture and paintings and silver and crystal. But yet I also have done quite a few maps and books and documents and sports memorabilia, which you've heard me talk about, and so forth. And but it's always good to ask that question.
Yeah, find what they're interested in. This is Jennifer. She's got a really interesting question. And she calls it a weird question. It's like, my friend in California, fires put paintings in the pool. No, my friend, they put their paintings in the pool. So maybe they put them inside of like a waterproof. I would hope that's waterproof.
They would have had to have been in an airtight container.
Yeah. And I mean, I guess that's a place to keep them.
Never heard that done before, but as long as they are safe from the water, that means that they're worried about the wind damage, then they're being protected from being bashed around. And that's probably a great idea. I'd love to learn more about that technique.
Oh, I got a great question. So we're packing up the house for Sarah, my girlfriend's house, and she has really nice artwork. So I built a crate for it so that we could ship it.
Love that.
The only thing I did, which I thought was like the way to keep it secure, is I actually put brackets on the back, and I drilled two small with screws from the back to hold it from the back on the frame. Is that like okay? It wasn't the actual frame; it was the wood frame for the canvas.
It's very important that the artwork is secure. So I'm not sure if I would have done exactly that, but when I've created my artwork, and I used to live abroad, and this is what you have to do. I would the artwork was, I didn't do this, but it was drilled. The painting was drilled in with braces and drilled in. So I think what you did is perfectly fine. You're talking about not the artwork or the stretcher. You're talking about the support. So it's absolutely fine. You need to support it within the crate.
Yeah, no,
I talked to a packing expert, but yes.
Thank you. Well, and I mean, later she's like, I don't even want tape on the back. I was like, because we're wrapping everything in paper, and she's got some collectibles and some, and I was like, well,
Gabriel, I would love to see that collection.
No, you know what? Not now, because it's wrapped. But when we unwrap it, we will put you on there.
I can come visit you at the new house.
Yeah, that's awesome. Absolutely. How do we know if we have something of value? That's actually a great question.
There's different types of value. There's sentimental value. There's historic value. There's market value. There's replacement value. And that's a conversation to have. When we're finding the right appraiser, it should always start with just a conversation, and you can talk about these things. Everything has a bit of value.
Yeah.
So, and when I'm doing something,
I love it. One man's trash is another man's treasure.
Exactly.
Right?
When I'm doing something on, let's say, historic value, I'm going to be looking at different things like when was it created,
Mhm.
Does it represent the quality of life at that time? Are there many that have been passed down through the generations? Is it a common object? And you kind of have all those qualifiers in there to help you
Right.
determine if it's the value that you want to assign, if it's fair market value or replacement value.
So interesting. All the things that I thought were going to sell, we put on Marketplace, and then we had a Baxter. I just got off camera. Hold on a second. We had a Baxter up front, like a dumpster. And so the stuff in the dumpster is things that were like, look, we're not even trying to sell this. And I had so many people go up to the dumpster and try to give me money for
Really?
the things that were in it. And I would tell them like, no, please just take it. It's like, oh, I'll fix it. I'm like, that's fine. That's exactly what I want you to do. I would
Oh,
love for you to
Gabriel,
recycle it. So
nice.
yeah,
I
no.
think
And then
that's a
we
sign
had
of your good taste.
well, and then, some of it was like a screen door that was like, it was a one-off, and like we just put it out. The guy's like, oh no, I'll fix this. It probably fits my door. I'm like, all right, and it was, the
You
strip and image.
brought up a really good point about this. One is about the market and also the condition. Something that I will help a seller with. If an item needs to be restored, I'm going to be able to make that recommendation before it comes onto the market. And also, some things will do better in Minnesota than they will in Texas.
Mm-hmm.
And or New York or California or Florida. And it's also important to look at that. Is it worth mailing it to a different venue for the highest sale?
And good point. We talked about this offline a little bit. If you have a big storm coming, I know this is already after the fact for Laura, but just at least run through the house with video camera and record things so you can see the condition out, right?
Absolutely, Gabriel. Thank you for bringing it up. So when you're getting ready for a storm, you're worried about your interior contents. And you probably should do it for extra as well. But for the purposes of today, please do a video of your home. Take snapshots, especially your valuables. Hopefully nothing will happen, but damage does happen. And it's often devastating and very sad. The more information you can give to me, the better the time will be eliminated. It'll be easier for me to process the information and to get the report out in a timely manner, and it will not cost as much. To me, I think that's really important.
Yeah, and if you want to insure it,
insurance company, the better.
Right. If you want to insure it, keep photos. Right. You can also text insure to the number on the screen, and appraisals. Like Barbara will actually help you go through that process. Or find somebody that can help appraise your property because you want to appraise it properly, so it does get replaced if in case of an emergency. What you don't
Absolutely.
want.
It's really better to have the appraisal in place so the insurance company knows who they're working with, and it will go a lot faster. But if you don't, if you want to save some money, document, and know where you documented it. You don't want to lose your thumb drive. You don't want it to be lost on your computer.
Right.
And it could be in multiple places. If you have a horrible storm, if it's all stored in your computer, I guess it's in the cloud. So it's not as devastating as it was a couple of years ago. Right. Love the cloud.
Right. Jordan's got a great question. Is like, what are trends you're seeing, in fine art world?
Well, it's a great question because the market is really pivoted towards contemporary artwork and ultra contemporary. So you pretty much think about your periods as modern being early 20th century, contemporary being late 20th century, and for your 21st century artwork, it's ultra modern. And that's trending, and that includes digital art as well as your fine art, decorative art.
So you think there's, art is so interesting, right? Art is like in the art of the beholder, like how, to really find the value. Just because it gets appraised at something doesn't mean it's worth that, right? It's really like if somebody.
It's worth that. It is worth that the effective date of the appraisal. So I am brought in to do follow-up appraisals, and I do recommend that you have your collection reappraised every 3 to 5 years. You don't need to overpay for your insurance. You also do not want to underpay, especially if some damage might happen.
Yeah, because if there's somebody that will buy your stuff, it's the insurance company when you have a claim. That's
right. It needs to be supported. That information needs to be there for them. When you're doing a general appraisal, you're going to provide all the information that the insurer needs for the insured. But if there's an accident, you're going to be able to pull out your work file, that scope of work, and be able to explain, the assigned or concluded replacement values and fair market values.
Okay, we're going to put you on the spot, Barbara. What is a no-fail investment? If I knew, I don't think we'd be on the show.
What's a no-fail investment? That's an easy question, Gabriel.
Is it?
Buy
Okay.
something you love. It's always going to be
Oh my
important to you.
God.
It's always
That's
going to
awesome.
make you happy. And that's what you do. And
That's awesome.
I love buying from artists that I meet and talk to. I love these old masters, but, to meet a working artist and they are creating something just like Monet was or Van Gogh, where they just love to paint and they wanted to express or they wanted to create a movement.
Yeah.
I think that's sort of an exciting area to collect, which would fall into your ultra modern, your ultra contemporary.
Jordan saying things that have been passed through generations. Absolutely. Like that's a no-fail investment because just protect it. I have a terrible story I'm sure you'll love. I was in Germany taking care of, just visiting my cousin, and I didn't want to mess anything up. So I decided, and I'm a good cook, but I'm like, I'm going to boil an egg. How bad can that be?
Right.
Found the ugliest pot I could find and boiled an egg. As I was helping a contractor, garden outside or whatever, I locked myself out of the house. Long story short, water boiled down, catch it on fire. Not the house, just the pot. But it was the ugliest pot. It turned out to
it
be.
is now. It is now the ugliest pot.
Oh my! It was ugly before, but it was ugly because it was a generationally passed. It was like the great grandmother's pot, and they never use it because it was like, oh my Lord! I've scrubbed for the whole night, hours, and I
The
made it
extra special
shiny,
pot
which I
because
made
it
it
would.
actually removed the value.
Oh no!
But they loved it. They loved that they actually now they use the pot because somebody burned an egg. This guy. But I love that idea. Yeah, choose something you love, and it'll always be valuable.
Absolutely. It's like a hug. And how great to have something that was used by your grandparents or your great grandparents.
Yeah. No, and I
It's
think
special.
that's kind of what we're looking at is so this property looking at is it's really like a legacy. Like we think it's a lot of homes. Well, a lot of homes in America tend to me, I mean, coming from Mexico City, seem to be temporary homes. People live in them 3 5 years and then they move to another home. In fact, you just moved to a new home, right?
I did just move to a new home. Well, in Houston, it grew very fast and very flat. Instead of really coming back and rebuilding older homes, it seems like people just went further and further out.
Right.
But what's exciting about Houston is people in the past 20 years have been coming back to downtown and the outer neighborhoods and reinvesting in our city again, which I think is so great. It seems an exciting place to be.
Well, and I love that we have homes that are hey, you're gonna have to maintain the look and the size, and we have some restrictions, even though we're a no zoning city. At least we've got some historical homes, and I think that's starting to, catch on. But
absolutely, and for sure, I want to share this. One of my research strategies is the Houston Public Library. And when I need to research something, a topic, I recently did some stained glass windows and wanted to know more about the maker and their contemporaries in the period. Going to my local library and checking out 8-9 books was really fantastic. And during COVID, you're able to pick your books out online. They will transfer them to your local library and then you can pick them up.
That's a great resource. Great resource. No, and I think it's just so important. I love the idea of hey, have videos, get appraisals before you need appraisals. And in fact, if you probably do everything that's valuable at once, it's got to be more cost effective than doing one.
Well, you struck up a really good point. Have your appraisal done. I've worked with a client where I appraised their entire collection, and then I did an inventory report for items that were of lesser value. And then we sat down and we met and we decided which items should go to the insurance company. And we decided to cut, he had an appraisal report for items that were maybe 50,000 and under, but items that were 51 and over, that's what he wanted to submit to the insurance company. But he has the other document in case he needs to use it at a later date.
Yeah, because then you never know. You'll never lose the entire collection, hopefully, right? Unless it's a huge fire or a flood.
I don't think 50,000 was the bench point mark, but it's important to pick one and stick with it.
Jeffrey's got a question. What if you think it's value? It's a value. What could you do? I mean, Google, right? I mean, eBay, all these online platforms. If there's something similar,
let's hope that's the buyer, Jennifer. If you're trying to sell something, and somebody thinks it's of value, then let's hope that somebody wants to buy it from you. It's okay. One thing is more valuable in Italy than it would be here. So then you're talking about the marketplace. So it probably is very valuable. But was that valuable 20 years ago, today?
Right.
I think I made reference to, I've brokered items recently that if they had been offered for sale 20 years ago, they probably would have gone for more money. You know, it just
it
depends on the
fluctuates,
time.
and if the buyer's there, right, then the market's there. And I've actually found things that I was like, oh, this can't be valuable, and then look online, and go, oh my god, like that's what happened to baseball cards. That's why baseball cards
Exactly.
got valuable, is because everybody threw them away, and all of a sudden nobody kept them, and they became valuable. That kind of goes into Jennifer's second
Supply and
question.
demand.
You know, how did the Beanie Baby hype happen? Because that was in supply. There was plenty of Beanie Babies being cranked out.
You know what? That has a lot to do with marketing, and more marketing. And recently appraised some Beanie Babies. And what I did was I picked out the ones that were of a certain value, and then the rest of them I sort of grouped. And the owner didn't need for me to spend a lot of time on this project, but I did want to carve out which ones had a fair market value of, you know, $5,000 and over. And some of them do. Some of those early ones absolutely do.
You're right. If there's like this momentum, hey, you know, jump into it, but don't go crazy. Like always do it because you love it, right? If you're,
I think Beanie Baby collectors did go crazy. I've seen some
it was
large
crazy.
Beanie Baby collections.
It was
You
crazy.
know, and they're fun and they're easy, and you know what? And it's fun to buy things, and it's fun to give gifts. And that was something that started out under, I'm not sure, but you know, probably under $8. So you know, it'd be fun to collect.
I'll throw this up because we know we talked about it. If you do need to replace something because you have an insurance claim, what is this broad evidence rule? What is we talked a little bit about offline, and that's probably somebody through Laura may actually be going through this right now, right?
This is a really great example of when you would use a broad evidence rule. It's a broad evidence report. It's for insurance companies, and it's to help them decide or determine the equitable settlement for a claim. And it's where you're providing the insurance company with the replacement value, the fair market value, the loss of value, the salvage value, what they need to know. And sometimes that could include getting conservation reports for an item or repair reports, and it's very detailed. So it's more than one value, and it's to look at the item from different levels.
One of the most important, my favorite part of the show is, what are 3 things we should do now? So we kind of already touched on a lot of these, but Barbara, tell us 3 things we should do now.
Well, the ultimate goal is, if you're going to need my services, is to help you maximize the value in your collection. So you can help me do that by documenting your collection, your artworks with photographs, with videos. I would love for you to get in touch with me and have a consultation, and we could talk about how to prioritize that. If you need my services, we'll do an appraisal report, or we could do a verbal appraisal. But then if something happens, we want to have that information to work with and make sure that you are properly covered. It also helps with estate planning, so that when someone has passed away, there can be an equitable distribution between family members. You do want to have adequate insurance. If you do want to do a charitable donation, I understand the IRS rules. I can write that appraisal report for you. And if you want to downsize, I can find the right seller, again, to help you maximize the value of your collection.
So timely, so important. Again, if you do need to file a claim, or if you do need some help through the process, Barbara Blades is one of our top experts. Expert 02. Expert 02. I'll put that up again.
Thank you, Gabriel.
You can text Insure to the number, and Barbara will get in touch with you. Thank you so much for being on the show. I think it was just so timely to kind of think about these things, and I know these are just things too. So we hope that people have been safe through this hurricane, and that's a top priority. But get your life back together is important too. So thank you for helping us kind of navigate through some of those things.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me. Glad to help.
All right, Barbara, we'll have you back because there's so many little questions, and there's other little questions on the chat. So we'll let you go on the chat, and we'll hope we have you back. Actually, you'll be back Wednesday because we're talking about art on Wednesday.
Yeah, we're going to have art. We're going to talk about artificial intelligence and that documentation. So I'm really looking forward to that conversation.
So you're coming back on Wednesday. Love to hear it. And give us a little plug about our other special guest.
Well, this is Shankar, who is currently hosting a virtual exhibition out of India, and he's working with 10 countries, and it's pretty great, and promoting local artists. But part of his company that he'll be talking about is digital intelligence, where it's his disc that you put on the artwork, which does a digital ledger. So this information is not going to be destroyed. So as an artwork is passed around globally, you're going to be able to keep up with the ownership, or if it's had conservation treatment, that can be logged into the digital ledger. And so you just kind of know about the history and what's going on. I love this. I'm currently working on an old master painting, and we had to contact somebody in New York, which was great, an Italian scholar who had to go to the history books to find this and that and some references. But what Shankar's talking about is just having it right there, and you just sort of download the information and it's done.
Perfect. We'll see you Wednesday. I'm dying to learn more about this digital world of art. And again, thank you so much for the pointers, because a lot of people are going to go through claims and that stuff, and it's just important to have somebody like you to be able to kind of guide them through that process. So thanks for being on the show.
Appreciate it.
All
Thank
right,
you.
We'll see you Wednesday.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Guys, that was Barbara Blades. Again, join us on Wednesday. I mean, the AI, all the information that we're tying in is going to be so instrumental in just how the world's changing. And I love some of the questions that we've been having on the show. Again, if you've got experts that you think are timely, have them text Expert35 to the number on the screen. Actually, let me put my number on the screen, and we'll get them on the show. Again, this is Gabriel checking out from Denver, Colorado. We're traveling around. We're learning from different industries. We'd love to hear from you guys. We'll see you guys Wednesday next week.
We educate during difficult times. We collaborate at Expert35. This is for a better tomorrow and a better today. Let's come together, and together we will find a way. You got questions, we got solutions. You got problems, we got resolutions. Visit Expert35.com. No need to worry, just remain calm. No more pain, no more sorrows. We provide solutions for a better tomorrow.